They've been open about it. They have to do it. Many chaotic moments. This has happened so many times with Trump because he just doesn't abide by the normal diplomatic PR trained answers that are required of him in the way that other politicians would. Because of that reason, anyway, that's you got to look out for these guys when you go to protest. All right. So obviously we're going to start off. This is going to be a somewhat Gaza heavy day today because it's a major news story. Not that I feel like Americans have moved on from it to a certain degree where, half the people are just like, okay, virus here. Good. This is what we wanted. It's over, right? Like now we don't have to think about Palestine ever again. And then there's the other people who are like, it's not enough. We should have killed more Palestinians. And they can't openly say it like that. So they just go, why are the fire now people so quiet? Why are the fire now people so quiet? Meanwhile, the fire hasn't ceased. Okay. Yeah. R.I.P. to Saleh. Like there's a very famous Palestinian journalist. There's a very famous Palestinian journalist who was shot and killed in the additional Israel-backed gangs, Israel-armed gangs that immediately tried to take advantage of like the power vacuum that existed for like a brief moment. And Israel, instead of directly engaging the Palestinians, has basically let these like gangs roam around and from like Israel protected areas. They go into areas where like Hamas is reasserting control and the Palestinians are reasserting control, and basically they engage in these like gun battles, and a lot of people are covering it. They're not fully understanding exactly what's going on, but unfortunately in that process, are they like settlers? No, they're collaborators. So there are, for those of you that don't know, I mean, I'll get into it a little bit later because we're currently just talking about my GOAT, peaceful president, Mr. Peace. I like to call him President P, short for President Peace. Okay? Because he is my GOAT. He is the peace president. He's the peacetime president. He did it. He did the damn thing. Okay? President PP. Yeah. PP for short. President Peace. Anyway, because I know there will be some fucking hogs in here that are like, oh, why don't you give him credit? It's like, yeah, in comparison to Brandon, he actually did enforce the power that he had over Israel. I mean, he could have done this in fucking January, which would have, I think, in my opinion, if he had done this in January, he would have received a Nobel Peace Prize, and he would have deserved a Nobel Peace Prize. The fact that he actually waited for like another 9 months so that Israel could get, a bunch of more Palestinians in the Strip is gross and disgusting. But, at the end of the day, if we're going to measure him off of what Brandon did and what Brandon could have done and refused to do versus what he did, he did actually eventually fucking say to Israel, it's over, it's done. As far as we know, because right now, once again, just like I said with the last ceasefire, if this is long lasting and this actually starts up the process of recovery, relief, and also recognition of a statehood, a recognition of sovereignty, true emancipation for the Palestinians, then I'm on board. That's great. Okay. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that that is going to happen. And I don't even think that the ceasefire is a legitimate one. I think Israel is going to find ways to violate it. If you recall, for the last couple of days, I've mentioned two things that Israel could potentially use to make it seem as though they don't want to abide by a ceasefire, to claim that it's actually the Palestinians that are not abiding by a ceasefire. And they have literally started using those two things. If you've been in here for the past week or so, when I was covering this stuff, you already probably heard that. Number one, they can't find all of the dead hostages. They're gonna use that as an opportunity to say, the Palestinians are spoiling this ceasefire negotiation. They're not abiding by it. And they've already started saying that. And number two, they'll claim, well, these guys are not actually fully disarming. So we have no other choice but to go in and continue our genocide. Both of those things are Both of those things are like being entertained right now in Israeli news. But overall, this is where we're at. We're taking it one day at a fucking time. So let's take a look. Breaking news. Donald Trump signs historic Gaza peace plan.
President Trump now signing that historic Gaza deal. Let's listen in.
Some were brought in and some were not. And they're working out to find out where those bodies are. It's hard to believe that you even have to say something like that. It's so sad. It's so sad. But what's not sad is that we have finally, after, I guess they say 3,000 years, I've heard from 3,000 years to 500 years, but whatever it is, it's a lot. But this was the one, this was the granddaddy of them all. And frankly, I thought this was probably going to be the toughest, and maybe in many ways it was, but we had a lot of good talent. Steve Witkoff, Jared, and Marco, and Pete, and General Kane.
3,000 years, more like 3 million. You don't understand. 3 million years. It's been promised. It's been promised to Israel. It's Israel. Israel. I love the Bible. It's in the Bible. You know me. I'm a big Bible fan. I'm a big Israel fan. I am feeling more confident about the longevity of the ceasefire just because of how much Trump has put his personal brand behind it. Given how hard he's going at owning it, it would be very embarrassing for it to break down now. His statement on Hamas made me feel more confident as well. Yes, this was actually another unique moment where Donald Trump says the quiet part out loud in a way that is so unexpected from any American leadership whatsoever. This was a huge moment. Correspondent goes, Hamas is rearming itself as a police force shooting rivals. What's the message to Hamas? And Donald Trump straight up goes, that's going to happen. They're taking control over the strip. They've been open about it. They have to do it. Many, many chaotic moments. This has happened so many times with Trump because he just doesn't abide by the normal diplomatic PR trained answers that are required of him in the way that other politicians would. Because of that reason, okay, he will sometimes just say shit that is true, but you would never fucking hear. You would never fucking hear from an American president or even an American politician. He did this with the Houthis. If you remember, he did this with the Houthis. With the Houthis, he was like, yep, they're brave. They're the bravest fighters you've ever seen. The Houthis, they're so brave. They're brave fighters. We had to do a deal with the Houthis. They're good fighters. They really got it down, the fighting. And it was shocking when he fucking said that because you just don't expect that from an American president. Or if you remember from many, many years prior, when Trump was originally running for president in 2016, when he had moments like that a lot more frequently, when he wasn't as like Washingtonian brained, he would say stuff like, I think it was with Bill O'Reilly, where he famously once said like, you know, Putin's got killers. Well, we got killers too. We're not such good guys either. Like, it's stuff like that every now and then comes out of his mouth where you're just like, I never expected an American politician to say that. It's weird. It feels like he just has like accidental truthful moments, partially because he just says whatever comes to his mind. And because he's never experienced any fucking repercussions for it throughout his goddamn career as a politician, he just will sometimes arrive at a correct position. And in most circumstances, he actually says the quiet part out loud, which is very frustrating for a lot of people. Like when he was saying to Ukraine, like, you don't hold the cards, we hold all the cards, which ironically wasn't even true. It was Russia that held the cards. But it's just like it's a very strange phenomena where you see Donald Trump, every now and then just come out with no sugarcoating whatsoever. Lord, oh shit, fuck. God damn it. Sprayed coffee. With no sugarcoating whatsoever, every now and then we'll engage in these kinds of moments, right? We'll engage in this kind of commentary. We'll say the quiet part out loud. In a lot of instances, the quiet part out loud, unironically, is betraying the supposed, like, America does violent stuff, but it's actually done at the behest of a greater good. America has to be the world police shit, right? It's oftentimes stuff like, it's oftentimes him straight up telling people, hey, what are you going to do about it? Of course, we're going to keep selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, even though they like chopped up an American journalist, because do you have $3 billion to purchase weapons with? And if they don't buy it from us, they'll buy it from somebody else. Like, that's what I mean. When I say like Trump has moments of clarity like that, it can go in either direction. Like when he fucking openly will be like, yeah, if I was a Venezuelan, he was not a citizen. Yes, he was. He was an American legal permanent resident. What the fuck are you talking about? Jamal Khashoggi was straight up. Jamal Khashoggi was killed by Saudi Arabia, and he was an American legal permanent resident. Shireen Abu Akleh, which was sniped by Israel, was a Palestinian, but also an American legal permanent resident. There have been plenty of instances where people with like dual citizenship or have some kind of like American legal permanent residency that have been killed by people that we consider to be our allies. And America predictably doesn't do anything about it because all they give a shit about is selling weapons. But yeah, that's what it is. That is what it is, as always. The gray bars are back. Bro, listen to the second speech that Trump gave. It are back right on time. Part of me feels like Bibi won't be able to resist pulling out his dick and slapping Trump. I don't know. I think a lot of people are basically looking at what Trump is not just what Trump is saying, but like I've been talking to a lot of Palestinians. I've been talking to Palestinians that are still in Gaza. I've been talking to Palestinians that have escaped Gaza, Palestinians who are pro-Hamas, Palestinians who are anti-Hamas. You know what I mean? Like to get a better understanding of the situation in the eyes of the Palestinian public in general. And virtually everyone seems to think that this ceasefire will hold. Like every single person. So I think there is something different here. And maybe it's because of all of the pressure around the world and like Israel's pariah state, it's made the American government, or at least Trump, recalculate his allowance for Israel to do violence. Okay, that's what it feels like to me.
Of Hamas rearming, instituting themselves as a Palestinian police force, shooting rivals. What is your message to
Where they are
Hamas?
standing because they do want to stop the problems. And they've been open about it, and we gave them approval for a period of time. You have to understand, they've lost probably 60,000 people. That's a lot of retribution. They've lost 60,000 people, and the ones that are living right now were, in many cases, very young when this all started. And we are having them watch that there's not going to be big crime or some of the problems that you have when you have areas like this that have been literally demolished. You know, you have 2 million people, and probably it'll be less than that, but you have close to 2 million people going back to buildings that have been demolished. And a lot of bad things can happen. So we want it to be safe. I think it's going to be fine.
Mr. President,
Who knows for sure, Katie, but I think it's going to be fine.
Mr. President.
I mean, that right there is straight up one of those. That right there is like one of those unique moments where he's just like, yeah, we're letting him do it. Which, by the way, can change at any moment, right? Because like someone on the Israeli side will be like, no, we have to fucking use that back and forth conflict as an opportunity to go back in to the Gaza Strip with the Israeli military, and Trump will turn around and say it, right? So he's saying that the U.S. is approving of Hamas acting as an interim police force, which is probably true, but they would never say that. No, of course it's true. Obviously, like we're talking about millions of people that live here. They have to have some kind of governance. Otherwise, it's chaos. Of course it's true. Of course it's going to be who already controlled the Strip prior to October 7. They are the only ones with the organizational capacity at this moment. And Israel, knowing full well that there is like sectarian conflict even within the Gaza Strip, with a bunch of criminal elements within the Gaza Strip, have utilized a different clans within the Gaza Strip to actively steal aid and actively fucking shoot at people and create chaos at the point of aid delivery, things of that nature. Like they've been utilizing different factions within the Strip over and over again. So obviously, in order to reassert control in the interim period while the ceasefire continues, the people that are in charge before they actually dissolve are going to do that. Right? And Trump understands that because it makes sense. It has to happen. And what is crazy about it is not that, that's what's going on. What's crazy about it is that Trump recognizes it and says it out loud. Having said that, remember, tomorrow he could say something different. If someone on the Israel side says, Mr. President, why the fuck did you say Hamas is just like reasserting authority and control over the Gaza Strip, where we're going to use that as an example of chaos to go back in to find like a just cause to go and fucking dominate the Strip. He will turn around and say it. He will turn around and say whatever the Israeli envoys are telling him to communicate.
So great. John Ratcliffe was incredible. We had an amazing array of talent, and we were helped by, in particular, the countries represented at this table. I will say, Tamim, you were fantastic, and your country is unbelievable, and I don't think they give you a fair shake. They talk about you as the...
This is good news, but as Trump, it will flop. Also saying he would have deserved a Nobel Peace Prize is insane. He's a convicted rapist. Don't let this man whitewash his horrid legacy. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. First of all, I don't believe the Nobel Peace Prize is like a valid instrument of justice or peace. Okay? That much is probably clear to you. I've covered it before. I covered it in this past Nobel Peace Prize. Like the recipient was someone who was literally pro-Israel and wants Israel to intervene in Venezuela. Like, that's fucking ridiculous, right? It means nothing. Having said that, if that was a primary motivator, I've always said it would be valid. The second thing I also mentioned that you're failing to consider here is that if he had actually come into office and as his first act in office, he literally fucking implemented the ceasefire that's happening right now, but all the way back in January, then it would have been valid. It would have been valid. And the reason why it would have been valid is because he would have, without having his hands bloody on this iteration of the genocide, even though what he had done prior with the Abraham Accords is basically what led to October 7 to begin with, right? But he would have, because the environment would have shifted so much under Biden, that he would have been able to present himself as someone who is actually charting a different course for the trajectory of the Palestinians. He would have been seen as someone who actually went in there and truly stopped the death and destruction. And yet he didn't do that. And he allowed Israel to continue doing death and destruction for another 8-9 months, which is completely unacceptable. And for the record, what a spectacular defeat for the Democrats here, because the reality of the matter is both the Democratic Party and the Republicans had this maximum power over Israel. Okay? We don't know if this ceasefire will hold. I really hope it does. Having said that, if it does hold, the Republicans will look like the peaceful party once again. And the Democrats will look like the party that had every opportunity to put an end to this slaughter and refused to do so. It's incredible. What a spectacular political defeat this has been, even outside of the immoral nature of advancing a genocide. Think about that. Finally, they are home. Crimea River, there is no hostage swap. The released Palestinians are murderers and rapists. There is no genocide. Fuck Gaza, fuck Hamas. Long live Israel, long live America. Death to all Hamas Nazis. Streuselkuchen 8, Zio-Nazis, feeling a little bit more comfortable with their statements today of all days. You said, so what? So what, yeah. So what? Thank you for your low-tier bait, dumbass. Hasan Nazi, shut up. Between you and I, it's awfully funny for you to call me a Nazi, you know? Yeah, if you're defending Israel, I think we both know who's the Nazi here. This is what's different about the landscape, even in the Western world now. In the past, you could have just been like, you could have actually been, you could have actually gotten away with like claiming someone who's anti-Israel is a Nazi, right? And there are definitely Nazis who are anti-Israel. I'll go so far as say there are Nazis who are pro-Israel in larger numbers than Nazis who are anti-Israel, but that's besides the point. Now, what's interesting to me in this day and age is that this doesn't work anymore. This doesn't work after 2 years of genocide. It was never truthful. It was never a truthful retort regardless. But now a lot of other people, a lot of normies are aware that this is not truthful. And that's the difference. But yeah, it's an absolute embarrassment for the Democrats that Donald Trump has shown more interest in ending the killing in Gaza than Joe Biden did. I know that a lot of Democrats are going to get mad for myself saying this, for other leftists saying this, but this is not only the reality, even though Donald Trump's hands are also bloody here. Make no mistake, okay? He is also a butcher. He is also responsible for the wholesale slaughter of Gaza. While that is still true, between him and Biden, he looks better on this issue. And that is what's so fucking crazy about this. This is what I have been saying over and over again. Like, the Democrats do not understand. They are losing people to one of the most incompetent, one of the most transparent, belligerent fascists of all time. And everyone is going to give him his flowers over and over again now. And the Democrats are just going to sit around and look petty. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about any of this. It's just so wild to me. But hey, that's Pee-Pee, man. That's the peace president, Mr. Pee-Pee. Straight up. As long as this ceasefire holds, that's the motherfucker who basically forced Israel's hand to stop the genocide after allowing Israel to continue doing its genocide. Make no mistake, he's still a piece of shit. It's crazy. You should clarify that losing people in this instant isn't leftists becoming Trump or Republican voters. Yeah, no, there is a large swath of normies out there that are just not fucking tuned into anything, okay? Many of those normies have decided Israel's doing something bad, but they don't really give a shit about it too much, but they just don't think that it's okay that we're giving so much money to Israel, right? They will hear that Donald Trump ended the fucking genocide. They will hear that Donald Trump ended the war, right? And they'll go, okay, well, time to give him credit, I guess. That's what they will remember. Because people don't actually know exactly what's going on in the background. You have to remember, if you're in here right now, with the exception of those who are coming in here to be like, oh, you're killing your dog or whatever the fuck. For most people that tune in every day, you are very aware of all of the minutia, all of the details, all of the wheeling and dealing that takes place. Okay? The average person, even the average well-read person, if they're only getting their news from like the New York Times or Guardian or the BBC or CNN, MSNBC, they're not getting all of this background detail. They're not getting all of this information. For them, they just see Donald Trump doing the damn thing. Okay? That's what they see.
So you're not a nice person and you happen to be a nice person. You happen to live in a little tough neighborhood. You're surrounded by everybody. And without you, this wouldn't have happened. And I just want to thank you very much. That's Qatar. And he's an amazing leader. And another man who's been a friend of mine for a long time. I don't know what it is. I like the tough people better than I like the soft, easy ones. I don't know what the hell that is. It's a personality problem, I suspect. But this gentleman from a place called Turkey has one of the most powerful armies. It's much more powerful than he even lets known. If you look.
Oh my God, glaze. So Jeremy and I were talking about Turkey's involvement and what that means, if you remember. And I feel like I didn't actually understand what his question was. And I think there is more to the Turkish involvement and why that's significant that I briefly alluded to in that conversation, but I didn't actually mention or elaborate further on. Turkey is, alongside Qatar, one of the only countries in that region that actively and openly does not say Hamas is a terrorist organization. Okay? They not only host Hamas Politburo members, but they also have a very different position. Despite being under the American security apparatus, the American security umbrella, they will openly state that Hamas is not a terrorist organization, it's a resistance organization. Turkey obviously doesn't feel that way about Hezbollah. There is some other reasons for it. They don't like Iran or anything like that. But when it comes to Hamas, the official position that they have moved forward with is that in spite of their status as a NATO country, they have openly always maintained the position that Hamas is a resistance group, which is the truth, by the way, right? And the reason why the Turkish involvement here was significant is because I think their involvement signaled to Hamas that their involvement in the roundtable negotiations signaled to Hamas that they would be treated more fairly, that they wouldn't be fucked over. Now, I don't trust Erdogan as far as I can throw him. Okay, I don't think he's a trustworthy person, but I clearly the Hamas side, like the Palestinian resistance side in general, made that calculation a little bit differently than myself. Here's some more information on this. Turkey, Qatar, and other regional states would not let Hamas be destroyed despite being verboten in U.S. and U.S.-led countries. Hamas is treated with normal diplomatic protocol in Moscow and Beijing because the group plays an important role in this stage of the larger conflict. Yeah, Gershon Baskin notes how Turkey's spy chief Ibrahim Kalın helped Hamas get over the finish line. In conclusion of these first thoughts, President Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Steve Witkoff is a deal maker, and without Witkoff, none of this would have happened. Witkoff speaks for the president. Everyone knows it. Jared Kushner's role at this point was crucial because in the near future, Ron Dermer will be working for Kushner and not for Netanyahu. Bringing Kushner for the final round of negotiations was a brilliant move to neutralize Dermer's defined role of foiling every chance of ending the war. The Turkish head of intelligence is very close to Witkoff and to Hamas, and the Turkish intensive role was crucial in putting the pressure on Hamas to agree to the deal and not to walk away from the table. Is Hamas really a terrorist group like the West says? How do you feel about Hamas? Terrorism is a vague definition that the American government and Western nations use against all movements. In certain instances, it's valid. It's understandable to consider some group a terrorist group like ISIS or ISIS affiliate like Salafist movements and Al Qaeda and things like that, especially ones that want to like inspire global jihad, as they like to call it. But yes, in the instance of Hamas, or even in the case of Hezbollah, as a matter of fact, the terrorism designation is actually not an apt one. It's just a political one. It's no different than the terrorism designation that Nelson Mandela had, or the IRA had. It's a national emancipatory movement. A national emancipatory movement, especially with Hamas, in the case of Hamas, that does not operate outside of the confines of historic Palestine. That's what's interesting about Hamas's goals, and Hamas is a movement. It's just a part of a larger resistance group that is tasked with ending the occupation. Hamas is a resistance group. They have committed acts that you could describe as terror attacks in the past, but I would hesitate to call it a terrorist group. Its primary purpose is not terror. All militant groups are capable of engaging in terroristic acts. Exactly. If we're going to be super certain with the definitions, the concept that I abide by in terms of terrorism as a non-state actor, like terrorism designation or acts of terror for non-state actors, is oftentimes utilized when like non-state actors decide to target civilians. And yes, it is true that members of the Palestinian resistance have throughout time evolved and throughout time have decided to change their targets away from police and military to civilians as well. These are acts that you could consider to be acts of terror. Okay, while it is still for a higher emancipatory goal, these are definitionally what people think about when they think about acts of terror. 9/11, that's an act of terror, right? You have planes that are flying into a civilian area with the express purpose of causing chaos with a group that has a larger political goal, but what they're trying to do is basically just like put an environment of fear. Right? Boston Marathon is another great example of an act of terror, right? The Boston Marathon bombing. So ultimately, it makes sense if your entirety of your output or if your goals are not inherently emancipatory, but rather colonial. Even if you're a non-state actor, you can still engage in have like a broader colonial goal. Like ISIS had a broader, not colonial, but how do I describe it? a broader goal of creating an Islamic caliphate in this region, right? In the Levant. And that was an area that does not belong to them. They're expansionists. They're killing all these civilians. They're fucking brutalizing them. It is totally, it's an appropriate usage of the term terror group and an appropriate usage of the term like terrorism in general, right? States, ironically enough, oftentimes engage in these sorts of actions with regular frequency, a lot more frequently than non-state actors like Hamas do, for the record. Like, I mean, look at what Israel has done. Genocide is when the state decides to do the maximalist version of terror, right? Which is why I always say that ISIS or Nazi Germany is a closer equivalent to what Israel's ideological goals are and what Israel's actions look like against a captive population that it is the belligerent occupier of. Whereas ISIS is not a good comparison or an analog for Hamas at all, because Hamas's goals are not expansionist. Hamas's goals are emancipatory. In the act of said emancipatory purpose, have they engaged in acts of what you would consider terrorism? Absolutely. Bus bombings are a perfect example of this, right? Like any sort of like direct civilian targeting in any sort of militant action could be considered a war crime or an act of terror. Having said that, ultimately, they only operate within the confines of historic Palestine. And they've always been very careful to say that they only operate within the confines of historic Palestine. Anyway, in one of my classes, we read a paper that said ISIS was like a death cult. Would you say that's accurate? Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's inaccurate. I mean, yeah, they're nutty. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, it's not, there's a reason why regional actors don't have the same fucking attitude about Hamas as they do about ISIS, even though the same regional actors that are sitting right there have in the past, at the direction of these guys, have actually funded and facilitated, logistics for ISIS, but that's for a different time, either directly or indirectly.
Look at some of the recent conflicts. He was at the top of them, and he was winning them, and he did win them. And he doesn't want any credits. He doesn't want anything. He just wants to be left alone. He's a tough cookie, but he's been my friend. And every time I've ever needed him, he's been there for me. So I just want to thank President Erdogan. There's no problem with him because he is difficult. They call me. They said, would you do me a favor? Could you speak to Erdogan? And I do. And he never fails us. Right, General? He never fails. He's amazing. So I just want to thank you for the friendship. It's great. Thank you very much. And then, of course, we have the host tonight. And I just want to thank you very much. There was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful. And very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate. And you are a great leader. You have very little crime. You have problems that other countries don't have. And of course, nothing's perfect, but the job you do is amazing, and I want to thank you. Another one, we've been my friend right from the beginning. During the campaign against crooked Hillary Clinton.
Oh my God, I can't believe that this motherfucker's talking about crooked Hillary Clinton in Sharm el-Sheikh, bro. Oh God. I love how the FIFA president was invited to this, by the way. Yeah, you got Macron in the background too. All the best boys are here, okay? Incredible.
We were both downstairs waiting to go up to meet this gentleman who has a place called Egypt. The oldest civilization. They say 6,000 years. China is 5,000 years, but you're actually number one. 6,000 years. Can you believe it? But the oldest, they say, civilization. But so I want.
That's your president, my guy. I can't believe it. Every day that passes by, and I see how people behave on the internet, I understand why he's the president. I think I think this is the best it's going to get. I think he is reflective of how Americans are. He's just, this is us.
To meet him first, and we like each other so much that you waited for about an hour and a half, and I think your meeting lasted about 2 minutes with her. So I always remembered that. But that was our first meeting. We had great chemistry together. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great president. And
I'm so sorry for your loss. What happened? I mean, it's not a loss just for all of us. It's a loss for the entire world, I think. Like, it's just, there is no world where like America is just hermetically sealed from the rest of the planet. We all lose. When this guy is in charge of basically every fucking Western nation, we all lose. And I don't know. The more I think about this stuff and the more I see the historic parallels of growing fascism and the death of liberal democracy at the time and the way that like the period pre-World War I, between World War I and World War II, that time frame had similar shocks. Western liberal capitalist nations were basically trying to define what liberal democracies would look like. There was still some institutional grip that the monarchy had over many of these countries. Nation states were being designed. And I think at that time frame, a lot of people were like, yeah, liberal democracy sucks dick, bro. I don't want this shit. I want something different. And we all know what that different thing was. That different thing was fascism. It came up and blew the fuck up because it was so easy to get on board with. It was all vengeance, especially because of all of the economic harm that people had experienced, all of the direct violence that they had engaged with or the violence that they had experienced. And they were like, yeah, we need to whip everybody up. We need to whip people into some kind of order. And the liberal capitalists thought, you know, who could do this really good? Who could do this really well? The fascists can. And I think a similar version of that is already happening. But this time, instead of like liberal, instead it's the liberal Democrats themselves, like the liberals themselves. And I use like liberalism in the sense of like Trump is a liberal as well. They are the ones who are forming. It's not like a new fascist movement. It's more so that these guys are basically melding their movement into fascism.
Thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. We're really representative of a whole group of nations, and they're sitting behind us, and you know most of them. I can tell you this guy's got so much money. They all have. There's more money and power sitting behind us. I love that they're behind us. They've never been sitting behind anybody before. This is a very unique position for them, but they are.
Netanyahu canceled his trip to Egypt. Oh, yeah. So Netanyahu's, here it is. This is senior Middle East correspondent for I-24 News. Ariel Osaran says Netanyahu's decision to cancel his trip to Sharm el-Sheikh came following opposition by numerous countries that presumed Egypt to prevent Netanyahu from attending the Gaza Peace Summit, an Arab source tells I-24. So he wasn't initially invited. Donald Trump actually wanted him to come. And all of the other countries that are involved, especially the ones that are in the region, did not want Netanyahu there because I think they just didn't want to. They didn't want to be seen side by side with Netanyahu. They didn't want to be seen like shaking his hand or anything like that. And then he basically was disinvited quickly. The source stated that countries such as Turkey, Spain, Iraq, South Africa, and others claim that since they do not allow Netanyahu to fly over their territory due to the ICC arrest warrant against him, therefore he should not be invited to the summit and seen in their midst. Sources close to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas relayed messages to Cairo that this is not the time for a handshake with Netanyahu, the source said. Additionally, a group of journalists organized in Egypt sought to join forces with the Hind Rajab Foundation to examine the possibility of contacting a local Egyptian court to issue an arrest warrant against Netanyahu. According to the Arab source, following internal consultations mainly with the security establishment, it was decided to avoid the embarrassment and Netanyahu canceled his trip to Egypt. This person says a peace summit without one of the belligerents present. Sounds real promising. No, the belligerent is present. Trump is there. The main belligerent is present. Everybody knows that, for the record. So remember that. Everybody understands. They do the handshakes and they do the symbolism, but everyone understands. They're not stupid. Or even a stupid man knows who is responsible for this death and destruction. The main belligerent here is the United States of America. All of those regional actors know that reality. And therefore, They were like, we have one of the belligerents here. Okay. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's trip to Sharm el-Sheikh summit was conceived during his ride with President Trump from Ben Gurion Airport to the Knesset in Jerusalem, according to a source familiar with the details. When I spoke with President Trump while he was on Air Force One en route to Israel, he didn't know that Netanyahu hadn't been invited to the summit and said that the Egyptians were the ones responsible for the invitations. During the ride to the Knesset in the Beast, Trump told Netanyahu that he should attend. The source noted that Netanyahu agreed. A senior U.S. official said that afterwards, President Trump began mediating between Egyptian President al-Sisi and Netanyahu. The two haven't spoken since the start of the war in Gaza. Trump called the Egyptian president and asked him to invite Netanyahu to the summit. Shortly after, Sisi called Netanyahu and invited him. Netanyahu accepted the invitation. Then they disinvited him. And the reason why is because what the fuck do you think is supposed to happen? Obviously, it's a little crazy for Qatar to just like sit there and shake Benjamin Netanyahu's hand, right? Also, this shows you exactly where Sisi is. Donald Trump says jump. He says how high. Donald Trump says bark. Sisi gets on his hands and knees and barks. Remember, okay? British bastard, Trump makes peace in the Mideast and you're still mad? Wait, what? I am saying he is the peace president. He's PP. Okay, that's my goat. He's Mr. PP. What happened? Is this how little you care about everything that's going on? That the only thing you're in here is like an quote unquote own or something? You're like, ha! Trump did the peace, dude. He did the peace. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iran are also not present. Neither is Hamas. This does make me a bit concerned. The beast is the U.S. president's armored limo. Yes, I know. Sisi awarded Trump. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has awarded the Nile Collar, Egypt's highest state honor, to President Trump for his contribution to promoting peace and most recently his pivotal role in ending the war in Gaza. El-Sisi's office said, "We shall see." I'm Egyptian and I'm embarrassed because of my president. I mean, yeah. Well, I'm American. I'm American and Turkish, so I know what that's like. I think there are very few countries on the planet that could be like, nah, I think my president is doing a decent job. You know? Think about it this way. Sisi is more a puppet, so at least you know that your countrymen didn't fucking vote for him. In the same way that we here in the United States of America have to also deal with the idea that there is a decent chunk of the population that fucking loves this guy. I don't know how many people in Egypt love Sisi, but I can tell you it's like 30 to 40% that love Donald Trump. And I think that's objectively a worse situation.
Seriously, they're among the most powerful countries in the world, the richest countries in the world, and there's never been really an assemblage like what we have today. I don't think I've never seen it anyway. And I want to thank everybody for being with us. Man, I just solved the war for him. Azerbaijan. Oh, did I do a good job? Where did you come picture here? Where is there he is? You guys are still getting along, right? They fought for 32 years. In about 1 hour we settled it, right? And they like each other. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. Italy, she's a very strong ruler. He's doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. But we're actually going to be making a speech after this, so this is just a very important signing, but we're doing a signing, then we're doing a speech, and then I may stay behind with the leaders just to talk about that, some things without the press. I want to thank the media for you've been so respectful on this deal. You know the importance of the deal, and I really...
Dude, everything is small fry for this guy. Oh my God, everything. He's just happy that the media... He is just happy that the media is like saying this is good, that like a ceasefire is a good thing. He's like, finally, they're being so nice to me. It was so pleasant to watch. I was on the plane for quite a while listening to the various newscasts, and they were all fair. They were talking about how incredible this is. This is an incredible day for the world, let alone the Middle East. So I just wanted to thank the media. They really treated it with respect. I wish you could be like that on other things, but that's perhaps too much to ask for. But on this, tremendous, everybody feels the same. Just tremendous respect, and we appreciate it very much. Can we get the documents, please? Okay.
You will sign right here.
Okay. Okay. This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up. Okay, thank you. You can use my pen if you want. Have a pen? Want to use mine? Okay. Okay.
It's pretty funny that Trump is signing anything. Like, officially, the U.S. isn't a party of the conflict. So what the hell is he signing? Come on, man. It's time to get real. You know what I mean? First of all, technically, none of the people here are official parties to the conflict. But it doesn't matter. Everybody knows the truth. Everybody knows the truth. And it's not what Trump is saying with his mouth when he says, like, oh, this has been going on for 3,000 years. We've put an end to it. But everybody understands that, of course, it's America that is, like, primarily involved in this. Why else do all of these other fucking countries also sit idly by as this seemingly sovereign foreign state that is a settler colonial enterprise smack dab in the middle of this fucking resource-rich region is capable of being belligerent and attacking 7 fucking countries at the same time, including some of those fucking people that are there, like the Qatar. Like, remember, Israel bombed Qatar, okay, a month ago. Everybody understands why you just have to shut the fuck up. Everybody understands why you just have to sit there and be like, yes, Mr. President, you're doing a great job, Mr. President. Thank you so much, Mr. President. We love you, Mr. President. It is what it is. Yeah, it's all hail Daddy Trump. All right. This is just fucking signing
Signature
shit. All
page,
right.
yeah. So we're going to go and I'm going to say a few words. We'll give you a little speech. And then we're going to meet with the leaders after that and spend a little time together without the media. The media is invited to the speech. I just want to tell you the people behind me and some of the people in the room that are so helpful. But the people behind me are the greatest leaders, most powerful leaders, the richest leaders, frankly. Sometimes it's not politically correct to say that, but I'll say it. The richest in the world that the world has ever seen. And yet when you get to know them, I know every one of them, in their own way, and I can say in particular some, because that's the way life works, but some of the greatest people you'll ever meet, and people that really care for their country.
Definitely. When I think about virtually all of these guys, that's what I think of. I think of some of the best people there is, okay? There is not a single person there that I would say is like objectively a good person. That's so funny. That's the King of Jordan, for those of you who don't know. Sitting at 5'2" is a British colonial apparatus. Even Marx Carney, yes, especially the liberals, because the liberals that are sitting at this table also present this false reality, this notion that they actually care about law and order, that they actually care about like the international rule-based order that was designed, when they obviously don't. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. There are some that are fine. There are some that are better than others there, right? But like ultimately, it's just like a league of villains.
And why this happened is they all came together and they wanted to get Gaza straightened out. They wanted to get the whole thing straightened out. It got to a point where it was just crazy. And once they got together and once we started talking, it went really, to me, it went smoothly. It went so smoothly. You were such a big help, but it went so smoothly that nobody can even believe it, that we're sitting here and getting this all certified out and all done. And everybody's happy about it. Everybody's happy about it, like I've never seen before, actually. I've done other deals, and people don't care as much.
Nice.
I think they're big deals, but this is something that's taken off like a rocket ship. And it did from the beginning, and I've heard for years, this is the biggest deal, it'll never happen. For years, long before I ran for office, that this is the Middle East. It's
I cannot stress this enough. The Democrats literally wrap this up as a gift. Not only did they lose the election in part because of their lack of interest in doing this. But the very fact that they didn't do this and then Trump came into office and then did this, especially if it holds, okay, especially if it holds, is just a spectacular fumble. A spectacular fumble. And I don't want to hear it from any of the fucking liberals in the chat that would normally come in here and say shit like, oh, you know, you're just like shitting on the liberals. They have no power in this situation. They had all of the power when they were in charge. Okay. And they didn't, I can't even say they squandered the power, because it doesn't seem like they squandered the power at all. It seems like they wanted this to continue happening. And now the entire fucking world thinks that Donald Trump was capable of bringing about peace in the aftermath of 2 years of genocide. Speaking of breaking from the liberal, socialist, PSL, and PFP candidate Ramsey Robinson announces his bid for governor. Okay, man, we're talking about, you know, international events right now.
The biggest, most complicated deal. And also it's the place that could lead to tremendous problems like World War III. They always talked about World War III would start in the Middle East. And that's not going to happen. We don't want it to start anywhere, actually, but it's not going to happen. So I just want to thank everybody, and I'll see you in a little while. And in particular, thank you all. Thank you, Tamim. Mr. General, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great job. Great job.
Am I doomer pilled for feeling like there's literally 0% chance this holds? I think the real, the truth nuke doomer pill is that this does hold, and the West Bank encroachment continues, and we go back to business as usual, where there's even more Western colonial control over the Gaza Strip, and no resistance whatsoever from the Palestinian front, as they slowly but surely go back to a life of being victim to slow burn ethnic cleansing, which heats up every now and then. When Israel does like sieges or whatever, as they did over and over again. And they continue to make the Strip uninhabitable for any Palestinian human being. And we just kick the can back down the road, and the rest of the world turns a blind eye to it. Because the position that many of you have arrived at after 2 years of genocide, like the realities that you started recognizing after 2 years of genocide, were realities that already existed, right? Many people saw what Israel was doing and wanted to read further. And then they realized, oh my God, everything I've been taught about this situation was wrong, right? But you have to remember, 75 years prior to October 7, the conditions were still horrible for Palestinians, you know? So they were able to get away with it. Israel was able to get away with it because the world did not know. The world did not know what was going on. There was a sophisticated messaging apparatus that they took advantage of. It was a uniparty issue. It was seen as a uniparty issue. I think that's the real scary outcome of this, is that people go, come on, man. That's it. The ceasefire happened. What more do you want? It's like, you don't just move on from a genocide. Like there needs to be a process. There needs to be a truth and reconciliation. There needs to be a process of restitution. The apartheid must end. The occupation must end. Palestinians must get sovereignty. And it's very obvious to me that just like with the symbolic state recognition, conditional state recognition from Western nations, this is America basically doing the